everybody, it's Lily, and today I'm going to be talking about two books that have deeply cut a place into my heart. And those books are A Court of Thorns and Roses and A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. I decided that now would be a great time to review them with the third installment coming out on May 2nd, I believe. Just so you know, this will contain spoilers, like huge, enormous spoilers. So if you don't want that, if for some reason you haven't read these books yet, although they've been out for a while, if you still don't want spoilers, you haven't read it, click away now, because there will definitely be spoilers like from the get-go. So you pretty much can't talk about these together without having spoilers, so yeah. And for the occasion, I don't typically dress up for bookish things, but this is just about as close as I will ever get to being able to be the High Lady of the Night Court. So thought my tiara was, you know, special for the occasion. Anyway, and it gives me an excuse to wear a tiara. Who doesn't want that? I am a big rereader. I typically read the last book in the series, or like the most recent book before the next one comes out, for any series, not just this one. But I decided to reread both of these books, and part of that was because the first time I read A Court of Thorns and Roses, I did not like it. I didn't hate it. I mean, it wasn't like it was the worst thing in the world that I ever read, and I was never going to pick up another Sarah J. Maas book ever again. No, nothing like that. But I had read her Throne of Glass series. I was keeping up with that, so I'm not sure which book was out by that time. But, you know, I enjoyed her writing, and so I was like, hey, I'll pick up this new book. I don't really know, you know, much about it other than it's a sort of loose reinterpretation of Beauty and the Beast. But I like her writing, I like her stories, so why not? Picked it up and was super disappointed the first time I read it. I did not like it at all. I just thought it was nothing even close to being as good as her Throne of Glass series. But that was until A Court of Mist and Fury came out, which I absolutely loved from the first time I read it. It took me a long time to actually pick it up and read it. I had known that I was going to do it. I was going to at least give it a chance, because I do really enjoy Sarah J. Maas's writing and her writing style. I think she's a great storyteller. So I was going to give it a try, but it took me a while to actually pick it up and read it. I actually read it, I think it was last summer. We were actually in Spain at the time, and I stayed up way too late reading into the night because I just could not put it down, which was a terrible idea because I was already jet lagged from getting over there, and probably a terrible idea, but I did it anyway because I just loved it so much. So for that one, I did not reread, although I literally just said that I usually reread books before the next one comes out. I didn't reread A Court of Thorns and Roses before A Court of Mist and Fury came out. So I have only read each book twice now. Didn't reread it because I didn't really like it. So I was like, don't really feel like reading it. So now that the third one is coming out, A Court of Wings and Ruin, I thought, what a better time than now to reread them both and relive some of those moments. I have to say, my heart broke like no less than 17 times for Rhys throughout both of these books, over and over and over again. I just thought it was so interesting to go back and reread the first book with having the knowledge of the second book and what happens there. And just all of the different interactions that Feyre has with Rhys before, you know, we know that they're mated. And it's just like, oh, my heart is breaking. And like when he's like stricken at the end of Under the Mountain and he flies away or disappears or whatever, and we know now that that's because he felt the mating bond snapped in place. And I was like, oh, I love him so much. I found the first time I was reading it, like, I did not trust him the entire time, essentially. Like, I thought he was going to backstab her. I thought he was actually a bad guy. I mostly don't think that anymore, though with Miss Maas, you can never really tell for sure, for certain. But no, I think they're on the same wavelength. And I think that's because, like, we had such this, like, turnaround with Tamlin that it's like, anyone is fair game at this point. Anyone could backstab you. So I have come to really adore these books. I still prefer the second book to the first book. just because the story really picks up for me, and I think in a lot of ways it's a lot deeper than the first book. But I also enjoy the first book a lot more now than I did then. So, it was happy times had by all. I found, especially with A Court of Mist and Fury, that it's one of those books that you don't want to end, or I don't want it to end. So I'm like, how many pages do I have left? I better slow down. The end is coming, I don't want it to end. So I both read them fast and tried to slow down at the same time. So I think one of the biggest things that people like to talk about with these books, understandably, is Feyre's relationship with both Tamlin and Rhysand, and how they are significantly different. You know, and I think it is brought up several times within, especially Court of Mist and Fury, how, as Feyre brings up several times, that he was what she needed when they first met. She needed comfort, she needed safety, she needed someone to take care of her, because she had never had that in her life. She was always the one taking care of others, so she wanted some kind of security in her life. And Tamlin suited that. I don't think he's a bad person, necessarily. I mean, he does bad things, but I don't think he's necessarily a bad person. I'm hesitant to say that, but at least, at the very least in the beginning, he's what she needs. And I think their relationship is a good one in the beginning, although a little manipulative, a little sneaky, a little untruthful. There are problems, but I don't think it's inherently bad. It only becomes bad when they both change. I think one of the biggest things that I noticed, and I think is made abundantly clear, is that after their time under the mountain, Tamlin wants to pretend like nothing has changed in either of them while acting like everything has changed. He wants to pretend that she's the same Feyre that she was before she went under the mountain, although it's made very clear from the beginning that she is not. She has fundamentally changed. Her time under the mountain was transformative and heartbreaking, and she is very wounded from that time, not just physically changed, but mentally and emotionally, and he doesn't take that into account. He doesn't want to hear it, he doesn't want to think about it, he doesn't want to acknowledge that anything possibly could have changed. He wants to treat her, at least in the bedroom, like she is the same Feyre that she was. However, his actions indicate that he knows that everything has changed, and it has. I mean, really. However, now, although he insists on treating her somewhat as the same person, he won't give her the freedoms that she had before, which I think is ironic because now she's like 400 times stronger than she ever was as a human. And he had no problems with her going out and, you know, getting into trouble before that on his lands. And now she is so much stronger, and he's like, no, don't even set a foot outside this house, which is like, get out with that. But yeah, he doesn't want to acknowledge that she's different. And that's, I think, where the main problem lies. He wants to protect, and she doesn't need protecting anymore. She wants someone who understands and will acknowledge her pain and what she's been through without necessarily coddling her. And that's why her relationship with Rhys works. He feels a lot of the same pain, and I don't think that Tamlin doesn't. I mean, he has made sacrifices for his people, maybe not quite to the extent that Rhys has, but I do think he feels to some extent some of the same pain that both Rhys and Feyre feel. It's just that he doesn't want to acknowledge it, and that's where the problem lies. So I don't think he's an inherently bad person. I think he is horrifyingly selfish and self-centered, and that's why their relationship doesn't work. It's just not going to work with him being so self-centered and not taking into account any of her feelings, really. I mean, he says he is, but he isn't really. There's a line in A Court of Mist and Fury. So this comes at the very end of the book. There's like 10 pages left in the book by this point, at least on my iPad version. And it's when Feyre is insisting that the king of Hybern get rid of the bond between her and Rhys, the mating bond. And Rhys is like freaking out. He's been like, no, don't do that. And then we have Tamlin the Tool, who it says, pardon my language, but this is exactly what it says. Tamlin snarled at him, I don't give a shit if she's your mate. I don't give a shit if you think you're entitled to her. She is mine. And that, for me, just like, well, it enrages me, first off. But it also shows precisely that selfishness. He thinks he's entitled to her. Like, I just think it's so ironic that he thinks Reese feels that he's entitled to her, when he, in terms of thinking that she, as a person, you know, he thinks she's an object or something, he thinks he is entitled to her for some reason. Why? I don't know. I can't figure it out. But he thinks that Reese is acting entitled when really he's the one acting like super entitled. He's like the definition of entitlement there. So as many problems as I have with Tamlin, and as much as I hate him, and as much as I probably wouldn't be sad if he died in the next book, I could kind of sort of see Miss Maas having him redeem himself to some degree. I don't really want that to happen because I hate him so much, but I kind of see it happening. However, that being said, I almost don't know who's worse, him or Lucien. And to me, Tamlin is outright bad to Feyre. For the most part, people do not try to defend Tamlin. However, I don't hear as much negative stuff being said about Lucien, and I think that's because people see that, oh, he sort of is trying to help. He at least acknowledges her pain, he sees it, but he doesn't do anything, and that is what gets to me. It's almost worse because he does see how much she is struggling and suffering. Tamlin tries not to see it, and he tries not to acknowledge it, which is one thing, and it's not that it's not bad, but I think it's almost worse that Lucien does see that and thinks that his loyalty to Tamlin is more important than her well-being as a person. So, although I don't hate Lucien on such a visceral level like I do Tamlin, I don't necessarily think he's any better than Tamlin. I don't. I think him being his lackey and blindly following him is almost just as bad, if not worse, than what Tamlin is doing, all on his own. Each book has a scene that stands out to me a lot, and in A Court of Thorns and Roses, that is probably the scene where she's killing off the other fairies, and it's completely breaking her heart, and it's breaking her, and it's so sad. I don't know, it sticks out to me amongst the other terrible things that happen and the other things that happen in the book. But I think even more so than that, in A Court of Mist and Fury, the scene that stands out to me the most among a lot of scenes that are very memorable for various reasons, the scene that really sticks with me is the scene when Tamlin locks Feyre in the manor and she freaks out. And to me, it's just so like heart-wrenching. You can see it's precisely what she doesn't need at that point in time. She has told him that she needs to get out, she needs some air, she needs some space, and he does the exact opposite. And just the way she breaks down at that point is just so sad to me and so gut-wrenching that it really, amongst all these other great scenes, it really sticks with me. It's one of the scenes that I think about when, you know, or I would come back to between my readings of this book. Just something about it was very profound to me. I don't know. I can't really put my finger on what it is, but it's just so sad to me how that all happens. And on a lighter note, I think one of the more fun scenes that probably sticks out to me the most is the Panty Vision scene. If you've read this, you know what I'm talking about. I know there's a lot of great scenes in there with some sexy times, but that one, I think it's just so fun and flirty, and it just makes me giggle. I have so many thoughts about these books. I love the Inner Circle, like every single one of them. I am terrified to some degree that Miss Maas is going to make one of them some kind of like double crosser or something bad is going to happen, and I'm just like, no, like, don't. Off limits. Nothing is off limits with her. So I was thinking about the next book, what I think is going to happen, and the first time I read A Court of Mist and Fury, I was like, there is no way she's having sex with Tamlin, like when she gets back. It's not going to happen. But the second time, I hate to say this, but the second time through, I think she will. You know, Reese was Amarantha's whore. Feyre might well be Tamlin's whore. So, you know, I think there's a nice parallel there, and I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. I think in order for her to keep up the ruse, at least to Tamlin, it's something that's going to have to happen. I don't think that there's going to be much of her pretending with Lucien. I think he very much knows that she is BSing her way through being back with Tamlin at the end of the book. At the very end, when they're like walking back into the manor, her and Tamlin, she looks back over her shoulder and like smiles at Lucien, and you can just tell like he knows that she knows that he knows that you know, he's not fooled. But he also can't say anything because his mate is her sister, and if he ever wants to see her again, he's gonna have to play along, you know? And I think it's great. Oh, she just has him, and there's nothing he can do about it, essentially. I'll be interested to see how this plays out, but I don't think he's fooled at all. And I don't think that she's gonna try to fool him. I think it is very transparent between the two of them that there is a lot more going on here, and that she does not have feelings for Tamlin and is not happy to be back. And another thing that I am terrified about is that in the next book, in book 3, that Feyre is going to be pregnant, and I don't want this to happen. I don't want it to happen. I don't want it to happen. I'm less concerned about it in the second reading, but the first thing essentially that came to mind when I finished the first time was Feyre's pregnant. And I think that's because we never see her take the tonic when they get back to town after mating with Rhys. And to me, if you don't see it, you cannot guarantee that it happened. And I don't think we can guarantee, even if she's not pregnant with Rhys's baby, I don't think we can guarantee that she won't get pregnant with Tamlin's baby. And I, for the life of me, do not want this to happen. I don't like it when authors use babies as some kind of plot device. I just don't want her to be pregnant. She can be pregnant, like, in the epilogue, like a few hundred or 1,000 years down the line, but I don't want it to be used as some kind of plot device. I despise it when authors do that, and I don't want to see it happen. So I am just hoping and praying that that is not in the cards, but I could kind of sort of seeing it happening. But here's to hoping that's not a thing. I made a lot of annotations in here, but apparently I'm not going to talk about any of them. I don't want to drag this on for like ever and ever and ever, because I'm pretty sure everyone has watched like 14 million of these videos, and this is nothing new. But I thought that I would get in my 2 cents before the 3rd book comes out, because I obviously was not on BookTube at the time when these came out the first time, and I love to have the opportunity to get my thoughts out there. So I am so looking forward to ACOWAR. I can't wait to see what happens next. So yeah, let me know your thoughts, your feelings, predictions in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. Yeah, I guess that just about sums it up. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Bye. One thing I noticed in my ebook, and I cannot guarantee that it's written this way in the regular book, though I don't see why the text would be any different in the hard copy versus the ebook version, but we are introduced to Amarantha, and she is said to have kind of a red gold hair. So it's like, okay, cool. But then nearing the end, Amarantha is described as having black hair, and I was like, what? Am I just like crazy? Have I been imagining her all wrong this whole time? Like, where did I get red hair? But somehow it's some kind of typo in there. I looked at it like 4 times just to make sure that they weren't like it wasn't referring to someone else in the room at the time, but no, I'm pretty sure it's referring to her. So maybe she was originally supposed to have black hair. Maybe it was too stereotypical bad guy. I don't know. I don't know how it got in there, but I thought it was interesting.